Best leg and greetings to all my dear Tibetan students. I hope you all are doing great. Well, coming into this week's video lesson, I hope that you are high on confidence as far as the last video is concerned. I believe it's extremely important that you be absolutely clear of the previous video before you get on with the next one. Otherwise, in trying to understand the concept, you will find a lot of gaps in between. The fact of the matter is, the programs of the earlier week and this week are very much interrelated to each other. So make sure that you get the first one right before you watch today's video. So if I could recall some of the programs which I've explained in the last video. Last week we have learned the basics of recursion, followed by backed up by 3-4 programs. So today I would like to make a clear differentiation between the iteration and the recursion, which is oftenly misunderstood. So if I am able to provide you a clear differentiation between the two, you will not only get a clear idea about the iteration, you will also have even a better idea with regard to the recursion, which is the main topic. So I'll be explaining few programs which will help us to understand the matter. So first things first, we'll start with the first program for today, and that is computing a raised to b. It's simple and straightforward. We are going to write a function using both recursion method and iteration method in order to carry out the operation which will calculate the a raised to b. Since we have done the iteration already in class 11, I'll not be explaining much, but just as a matter of recall, let's say we are going to use the iteration method first. So it's going to be like this: def keyword followed by compute, and then you have two arguments, a comma b, and then we'll have additional variable called result, to which I'll be assigning 1, and then if the value of b is equal to 0, if the value of exponent is 0, the value will always be 1. So return 1. Okay? Anything raised to power 0 is 1. And then I'll have the else block. Okay? I'll run a loop for I in range, and then 1 comma b plus 1. This is important. I want to move the loop till the value of b. So if I do not have this, the value of b will not be included. So in order to make sure that the value of b is indeed included, I add 1 to it. So I hope you are well versed with these concepts. Okay, and then as a body, I'll have the result equals result into a. And then finally, I'll return the value of result. Okay, so this is the function definition for computing a raised to b, but using the iteration. So I've used the looping statement like for. So if I just run it real quick, let's say the value of a is 2, the value of b is 3. So 2 raised to 3, the answer should be 8. So the value of b is not equal to 0, hence this will be skipped. And then for I in range 1 comma b plus 1. So this particular loop will run how many times? 1 comma, and then you have b plus 1. The value of b is 3 plus 1 is 4. So this particular loop will execute 3 times. Is it? First cycle will be for the value of I as 1, and then for the value of I as 2, the second cycle, and then for the value of I as 3. So this loop will execute 3 times. So what happens during each loop? The value of A being 2, 2 will be multiplied with 1, the result will be 1 here. For the second loop, again you will have the value of A as 2, but the result's value being 2, the answer will be 4. Okay, and then finally for the third loop, what happens is the value of A is still 2, but the value of result is 4, so 2 times 4 is 8. So when all the loops are executed, finally the value of result, which is 8, will be returned to the main part of the program. So this is something which we have learned already. So now let us move on to the recursion method in order to calculate the value of A raised to B. So I'll just write here recursion method. Okay, so again I'll have the def keyword, and the name of the function is compute, and then you have 2 arguments, A and B. So the first thing that you should have in the recursion is, you need to have the base case, the situation which will bring the recursion calls to an end. So understandably, if the value of B is equal to 0, I'll have the return statement which will return the value of 1. Otherwise, I'll have else, and then you will have the return followed by you have A multiplied by compute of A, and then you will have B minus 1. That's it, I guess. So one thing is pretty much clear. If you go for the recursion method, the programming logic is far simpler. If you are real keen on having a proper technical program, you should always opt for the iteration. I'll come to the difference, in later stages of the lesson. So this is how you write a function definition for compute A raised to B, but using the recursion. We'll just run the program and check whether we are getting the correct output or not. Say the value of A being 2, the value of B being 3, the value of B being 3. Alright? So this condition is false. So it gets in here. You will have the value of A is 2 multiplied by compute of 2, the value of B is 3, 3 minus 1 is 2. Okay? So this will be the first call. Okay? This will be the first call. And then from here, the value is not ascertained just as yet, because you still have one more function call. And then from here, it calls the function itself. Alright? So this time the value of A will be 2, but the value of B will now change from 3 to 2. Okay? And then again it gets in, the value of B is not equal to 0, it comes here. So this time you will again have, as a result of this function call, you will have whole of the statement. So it's going to be like the value of A is still 2, 2 into, okay, this 2 will be retained, 2 into, you will have compute 2, and then the value of B is 2, 2 minus 1 is 1. So again, you have another recursive call. So 2 will be assigned to A, 1 will be assigned to B. Again, it gets in, the condition is false, and then for the one final time, it will generate this call. Okay, this call will again generate the return statement as 2 into compute of 2 comma 1 minus 1 is 0. Alright, so this will be the second call and this will be the third call, right? So for the one last time you will have one more function call, recursive call, and then this will still be 2, however the value of b will change to 0. So now this time, unlike the earlier calls, this call will generate this if condition to be true, and then you will have the return statement of 1. So the 1 value will be returned as a result of the final recursive call. So this will generate the answer of 1. Okay, so 2 multiplied by 1, the answer is 2. This will be the returned value of this function call. Okay, if I could repeat, this final call has generated the answer as 1. So 2 into 1, which is 2, is the returned value of the earlier call, of the last call. So this will be replaced by 2, okay, it's a little messy, sorry, 2, and then this as a whole is called by this function call. So this will be replaced by the returned value of 2 times 2 is 4, and then finally, this, the original call will get the returned value of 2 times 4, which is 8. Okay, so the final value of a will be returned to the main part of the program. So if I could just write the main part of the program, it will look something like this. A is equal to 2, b is equal to 3, and then the solution is equal to the function call of compute, and then I sent 2 arguments of a and b, and then finally print the value of solution. Alright, so this is how you write the program, or how you define a function for compute a raised to b using the recursion, and this is with regard to the iteration. So let's move on to the next program or the next example. I would like to retain both the programs. Okay, number 2 will be factorial. I'm sure you must be familiar with the term factorial. Factorial of a number is the product of numbers starting from 1 till that number. So how do you express the factorial in terms of iteration is, let's say if you have the factorial of 3, okay, so this is the symbol for factorial. So this will be like 1 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 3, 6 will be the factorial of 3. So this is the expression using the iteration, okay. However, if you want to express the factorial in terms of the recursion, it's going to be something like this. N factorial is equal to n multiplied by factorial of n minus 1. So this is using the recursion, alright, and this is using the iteration, alright. So you will see the difference between the two. Here, in order to implement this logic, we need to take the help of looping statements like for and while, but over here it's nothing but a chain of recursive calls. So let's write the program for factorial. I'm sure you must be totally familiar with the logic behind the implementation of program for factorial, but let's do this real quick. Let's say, okay, def, and then the name of the function will be factorial, alright? And then we'll have just one argument as per the question. So if the value of n is equal to 1, if the value of n is equal to 1, you will always get the answer as 1. That's self-explanatory. The factorial of 1 will always be 1, and then else, okay, and then I'll need this variable called f to keep the total the products in a variable, I'll take the help of f, and then I'll just get rid of this. Okay, and then I'll run a loop for I in range, and then I'll have 1, comma, n plus 1. So this time, the value of I will participate in the calculation of the factorial of a given number. The very logic, the very question demands us to be multiplying the numbers in a pattern of 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll take the help of the loop variable called I, because the I runs in a manner of 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is simple and straight, f, and then f multiplied by I, right? And then finally you will return the value of f. So make sure that you get the indentation correct, especially when you do the programs live on the system. It's so important that you maintain these gaps or so-called indentation. So let's check. Let's say I would like to calculate the factorial of 3, let's say 4. The value of n is 4, the condition is false. The condition is false, and then this particular loop, starts with the value of I as 1, f being 1, 1 multiplied 1 equal 1 multiplied by 1, and then when the value of I changes to 2, f into 1 into 2 will be 2. Okay, and then what happens here is when the value of I changes to, these are the value of I and these are the value of f. So when it changes to 2, you will have 2 here, 1 into 2, okay, right, and then you will have 2 times 2 is 4, and then 1 into, 1 second, 4 I in range. Oh, sorry. So this will be 3, and then 2 times 3 is 6. Okay, so this is pretty simple, right? So the value of I will keep incrementing starting from 1, 2, and 3. But this f will help us to store the product of the two numbers, f and I. So this is how you get the answer as 6 when the value of n is 3. Now let's use the recursive. Let's use the recursive method. Again, as usual, you will have the def, okay? You will have the def, and then the name of the function is factorial, and the argument will be n. So the base case will be, if the value of n is equal to 1, you will have the return statement of 1. Okay? And then you will have the else you have this return statement followed by n multiplied by factorial of n minus 1. So this is the function definition for calculating the factorial of a given number, but using the recursion method, right? So let's say we'll try to run the program. Okay, the value, let's say the value of n is 4. Okay, the value of n is 4. N is equal to 4, right? So the first call will generate the return statement of 4 multiplied by factorial of 4 minus 1 is 3. Okay, and then this will again call the function itself, as a result of which it will generate factorial of this will be 3 multiplied by 3 minus 1, which will be 2. And then again, you will have the 2 into, of course, these values will be retained. And then you will have the factorial of 1. And then finally, you know, the result of the final call will be, the condition of if, you know, will be true. The final call will be factorial of 1. The final call will be 2 multiplied by factorial of 1. The value of n will change to 1. And then this if condition will now be true, as a result of which the 1 value will be returned, right? So 2 into 1. So this value should be the returned value of this call. So 2 into 1 will replace this. And then this has been called by this function. So 2 times 3 is 6. 6 will replace this call. And then finally 4 times 6 is 24. 24 has been called by the original or the first function call, which is factorial of 4. Right? So the final value that will be returned is 4 times 6 is 24. Alright? So if you roughly calculate the factorial of 4, it will be 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. 1 times 2 is 2, 2 times 3 is 6, 6 times 4 is 24. So this is how you write the function definition for the factorial, but using the recursion method. Okay? Now we move on to the next program. I hope, you know, with two examples which actually helped us to differentiate between the recursion and the iteration. Now let's do another example with which, you know, we'll directly get into the recursion function, and that is finding the GCD, finding the greatest common divisor. Or you have another term for this, greatest common factor, greatest common divisor, or our very own term of HCF, highest common factor. So they all mean the same thing. So the question is, now this will be number 3, computing greatest common divisor, but we are going to use the algorithm of Euclid. Okay, I just write here Euclid. Euclid is, you know, one of the mathematicians. That's none of our business. So our focus should be on how to implement the logic laid down by the mathematician and the scientists into the programs. So, but it's important that we understand how this algorithm works, which was invented by the mathematician called Euclid. Okay, so first, you know, let us try to understand the algorithm. Algorithm means the logical sequence of steps in order to carry out a specific operation. So that's what we actually call it as the algorithm. So let's say, you know, we have two numbers being 20 and 12. Okay, let's say we have two numbers, 20 and 12. We have to find the greatest common divisor, GCD, using Euclid's or Euclidean algorithm. So this mathematician says you need to carry out like this. Let's say the value, the P is 20 and then Q is 12. So the algorithm runs like this. You have to multiply you have to divide the larger number by the smaller number. Be very attentive, because I want to smoothly move on from the mathematical algorithm into the program. So just divide 20 by 12. 12 times 1 is 12. You will get the remainder as 8. And then get the divisor as the dividend. You have 12. 8 times 1 is 8. You have the remainder as 4. So the remainder will be the divisor, and the divisor will be the dividend. So you have 8. So just carry on until you get the value of remainder as 0. So 4 times 2 is 8, and then you have the remainder as 0. So GCD basically means the largest integer or the largest number which could divide both the numbers, leaving no remainder. So that's the definition of GCD. For those who are little unsure about the GCD, it's possible. Just get the concept right. So I could say that the value of 4 is the greatest common divisor of 20 and 12. How do you reach this is you have to make sure that the remainder value becomes 0. So that's going to be the base case for our program. But if you take a closer look, this is Q, this is Q, and this is P, alright? This is P. So for the first recursive call, this will be represented by Q and this will be represented by P. But for the second call, this again should be Q and this again should be P, and this should be Q and this should be P, alright? And then again, if you just go on, this will be Q, even though I don't have any number as such. Let's say, this will be P, okay? So for the first recursive call, P is 20 and Q is 12. This is straightforward. But for the next call, if you take a closer look, the value of P is nothing but the earlier value of Q. I repeat, for the next recursive call, the value of P has been derived from the value of Q. So this P actually comes in from the earlier value of Q. But what about this value of Q? This value of Q, for the second call, this value of Q is nothing but the result of dividing P by Q and checking out the remainder. I repeat, the next value of Q is actually derived as a result of dividing P by Q, and then whatever you get the remainder, that becomes the value of Q. So in programming, we have this operator of present modulus operator, which returns the remainder of dividing a certain number by another number. So this Q is actually derived from P modulus Q. The value of P being 20 divided by 12, the remainder is 8. So 8 becomes the value of Q. Likewise, how do you get this? How do you get this P? You get this P from the earlier value of Q. Look at this, okay? So I can just write here Q, and then again this Q is nothing but the result of dividing 12 by 8 and then focusing on the remainder. So if you just move on like this, what do we realize is the next value of P is derived from Q, the next value of Q is derived from P modulus Q. So once you get this, it should be an easy ride if you try to convert this into the program. So I hope you're able to see this. Okay, let's do the program. Definition for the function, let's say GCD, and then you should have how many numbers? You should have 2 numbers in the form of argument of P, Q. Okay? And then, now the base case will be if the value of Q is equal to 0, the base case will be if the value of Q is equal to 0, I should return the P. Now for the last call, this P's value should be deriving from the earlier value of Q, which is 4. So how do you bring the program to an end is, if the value of Q is equal to 0, you should be returning the value of 4, which is nothing but the greatest common divisor of 20 and 12. So if the value of Q is equal to 0, and then you will have the return statement of P. So once you understand this Euclid's algorithm and then try to emphasize on how you get the successive values for P and Q, converting this into the program is real easy. And then however, I'll just shift the whole thing here, a little bit aside, else, now this is going to be like this, else return, or I'll just write here, else return, you will have GCD. Now take a closer look. The value of P is, for the next call, the value of P is derived from Q. Okay? Understood? Hopefully. The value of P is derived from Q, and the value of Q is actually derived from P% of Q. So this is the return statement. This should be the return statement, for the else. So in short, this is how you write the program for calculating the greatest common divisor using the Euclidean algorithm. So we'll quickly try to run the program. Let's say the value of P is how much? It is 20, and this is, just right here, the original value will be 20 and 12. Okay, so this is P and this is Q. Okay, so the value of Q is certainly not equal to 0, so it gets in here. What happens here is return, you have another function called the value of Q. The value of Q is 12, okay, and P modulus Q is 20 divided by 12, 20 divided by 12, the remainder, this is the remainder operator, you will get the answer as 8. So 12, again this is the second call, 12 will be passed on to P and 8 will be passed on to Q. So this time you are going to receive the value of P as 12 and the value of Q as 8. And then again move on, the value of Q being 8, it's not equal to 0. So again it gets in further, you have yet another call. So this time the value of Q, the value of Q is 8, okay, the value of Q is 8 and the value of P is 12. The value of Q is 8, 12 modulus 8. 12 modulus 8, you have the remainder as 4. So the 8 will again be assigned to, this will be assigned to P and this will be assigned to Q. So you will have 8 here and then you will have 4. Okay, so again, I think this is going to be the final call. 8, 4, you will have the value of Q is derived from the value of P. Okay, so you will, this time you will have as 4. Okay, the value of Q is 4, so you will have 4 here, and then P is 8 and the Q is 4. So 8 divided by 4, the remainder is 0. The remainder is 0, and then these two will be the final values for P and Q respectively. And then finally, when you check the value of Q, the latest value of Q is 0. This is equal to 0. The condition becomes true, and then the base case will finally be executed. So return P, the value of P is 4, so 4 will be returned to the main part of the program, and then try to print it. You will get the answer of 4 as the greatest common divisor of 20 and 12. So if you could understand the Euclid's algorithm properly in terms of the program, then it will be very easy to convert the algorithm into the program. So this is all about the program number 3. Now let's move on to the program number 4, which is again an algorithm which is generated by one of the mathematician Fibonacci. I don't know who he is, but what concerns us is the generation of Fibonacci sequence this sequence is used to solve many of the mathematical the problems. So the Fibonacci is again another algorithm, which will generate certain sequence. It's going to be like, okay, so I'll just write it here. So the program number is program number 4. Program number 4 is all about generating the Fibonacci sequence. Oops. Sorry. Okay. I hope I got the spelling correct. Fibonacci's sequence. Okay, so the first two numbers of Fibonacci sequence will always be 0 and 1. So this will be the first number of Fibonacci sequence, and this will be the second the Fibonacci sequence. The successive numbers will be generated by the sum of the two preceding numbers. I repeat, the successive Fibonacci sequence will be generated as a result of the sum or the addition of the two preceding numbers. So 0 plus 1 will be 1. So this will be the third number in the Fibonacci sequence, and then you have the two preceding number as 1 and 1. 1 plus 1, you will have 2. 2 plus 1, you will have 3. Okay, so this will go on like this. 2 plus 3 will be 5. 3 plus 5 will be 8. 5 plus 8 will be 13. 13 plus 5 will be 21. So this will go on and on. So this is the sequence which is generated by the Fibonacci, and then I believe this sequence is very useful to solve the larger mathematical computational problem. But our focus should be on how to convert this sequence, how to generate this sequence via the program. Okay, so we'll write the program first. Okay, so again, it's going to be def. Let's write fib. The name of the function is fib, and then I'll be accepting just one positive integer. So n will represent the number of the Fibonacci numbers that we would like to generate. If the value of n is 6, I should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if the value of n is 6, I need to have 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5. If it's 7, it should move on till 8. So again, so the thing is, how do you actually bring the chain of recursive calls to an end is if the value of n is equal to 1. If the value of n is equal to 1, what you mean is I just would like to print only the first the Fibonacci number, and that is always going to be the 0. Return 0, right? Okay, and then else elif, if the value of n is equal to 2, if the value of n is equal to 2, I would like to return the next number in the sequence, and that's going to be 1. So unlike the earlier programs where we have just one base case, but this time we have two base cases. The reason is simple. If the value of n is 1, you are referring to the first number in Fibonacci sequence, and that's 1. If the value of n is equal to 2, you would like to return the second number in the sequence, and that's 1. So these are the two base cases. However, okay, if both the conditions evaluated true, then we need to have the logic of adding the two preceding numbers. as explained just a while back. So you will have to return the two preceding numbers would be like fifth n minus 1, the first preceding number, the latest preceding number, and then you have plus. Since we are adding the two preceding numbers, I should have the addition operator, and then fifth you have n minus 2. So this is the function definition for fifth, but we'll have the main part of the program, since it's a must in order to understand the whole program. So the main program will start like this. Let's say the value of n is equal to 6, which means I'll be needing 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5 till this point. So, and then for, I'll have to take the help of looping statement. For I in range, okay, and then you have 1 comma n plus 1. And then with each with each loop, I have to make a call to the function called fill. So I'll have the print statement followed by the function called fill, and then I send the value of I, and then I would like to use the comma character to generate the sequence. That's it, I guess. Okay, close it once. So this will be the main part of the program. Now let's run the program. In order to understand this, we'll have to take the help of recursion tree. You could use whatever methods of your choice, but recursion tree is a good idea to understand this particular program. Now let's say the value of I will start with 1. Okay, so there is a call here, fit1. Fit1 will take us, this call will take us to the function definition. Since the value of n is 1, look at this, the value of I to start with is 1, n value will be 1, this condition becomes true, return 0. So you already have the first base case executed. So 0 will be returned here, and then 0 value will be printed followed by a comma. So you have the first Fibonacci sequence of 0, comma. And then I goes for the next value, which is 2, fib2, the value of n will be 2, this condition will become false, however this condition will be true, and then return 1 value will replace the function call, and eventually 1 will be printed followed by a comma. Okay, so this is simple. And then when the value of I becomes 2, when the value of I becomes 3, what happens here is n will receive the value of 3. Neither of these two conditions will be true, and then it gets in here. Okay, so you have fit of 3 minus 1 is 2 plus fit of 3 minus 2, which is 1. So now this time so we'll take the recursion tree. So this 3 will be broken into 2 parts. You have 3 minus 1 is 2. So this is again a function call. So this 3 will be broken into 2 parts. Fit of 3 minus 1, which is 2, and then you have fit of 3 minus 2, which is 1. Okay, so these circles, they represent the function call. And then, now this will again invoke the function itself. This fib of 2 will again call the function, and you will have 2 here. The first condition will be false, but the second condition will be true. So you have one final value which is being returned. So I'll just write here 1. So this is the value which has been returned as a result of the function call of fib of 2. And then what about this? This will again call the function itself, but this time the value of n being 1, the first condition becomes true, and it will return the value of 0. It will return the value of 0. So these are the 2 values, 2 solid values which have been returned as a result of the function call. And then finally, what do? We have to add these two numbers, and then the third number in the sequence will again be 1. And then even if you try to check by adding the two preceding numbers, 0 plus 1, the answer will always be 1. Okay? So this is how you get the third number. Now it's pretty easy henceforth. So when the value of n becomes 4, it's very easy now. Again, this will be broken into two parts. The first one will be 4, will be broken into 3, and then you will have 2. 4 minus 1 is 3. 4 minus 2 is 2. Again, this will be broken into two parts, two function calls, 2 and 1 respectively. Okay, and then this will again be 2. Okay, 2. This condition becomes true. This condition becomes true. So you will have, since the n value is 2, you will have the answer as 1. You will have the answer as 1. And then you have this 2 here. 2 here. This will again, this condition will be 2. You have the call here, and then up it goes. The second condition will be true. The value of 1 will be returned. However, this will return a value of 0. Okay, so function call with values with 2 will give us 1, as evident in these two cases. Function call with value of 1 will return the 0. So you have 3 values which are being returned, and then finally when you try to add it, 1 plus 0 plus 1, you will get the answer as 2. So again, if you just try to check out by adding the two preceding numbers, you will get the correct answer as 2. And then we'll go for the next value. We'll go for the next value. The next value of n is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you have 5 here. Alright? You have 5, and then 5 will be broken into two parts. You will have 4. You will have 3, 5 minus 1 is 4, 5 minus 2 is 3. This will again be broken into 3 and 2. This will be broken into 2 and 1. Okay, and then you have 3. This will again be broken into 2 and 1. This will give me a value of 1. As is the case here, you have 1. This will give me 1. This will give me a value of 0. This will give me a value of 0. This will give me a value of 1. And then again, when you try to add it, 1 plus 1 plus 1, which will be 3. So 1 plus 2, you have 3 here. Now finally, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For the value of n as 6, I should get the answer as 5. So we'll check it for the one last time. Okay, now finally you will have the value as 6. Okay, so you can actually try yourself. 6 will be broken into 5 and 4 respectively. 5 will be broken into 4 and 3. And then this will be further divided into 3 and 2. Okay, and then this will give me a value of 1. I have a reason why I'm changing the color. The black color indicates the ultimate value, or the final value that will be a part of the addition. And then you have here, this will be further broken down into 3 and 2. This will be 2 and 1, and this will be again 2 and 1. This will again be 2 and 1, right? So finally, this will give me 1, this will be 0, this will be 1, this will be 1, and then this will be 0, this will be 0, and this will be 1, and then when you try to add all the numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is how you get the 5 as the 6th number in the Fibonacci sequence. So with the help of the recursion tree, you'll be able to understand Fibonacci's sequence in the form of program. Alright? So this is how you write the function definition for Fib in order to generate the Fibonacci's sequence.